So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the opening of Farmington River Quilt exhibition at the State Legislative Office building. I'm Dan Bowler. I'm the Hartland representative and vice chair of the Farmington River Coordinating Committee, and I'm also the curator of these beautiful quilts. And I'm going to say quilts and quilt, and I know Mary Pat likes to kind of take me to task, and Roger, on quilts. They're individual, but they are conceived as one piece, so that's why it's called a quilt. We, the Farmington River Coordinating Committee, so I'm going to start using FRCC from now on, are so pleased to have the quilts on view here for the month of October. Besides the exhibit showing the Wild and Scenic sections of the Upper Farmington River in Connecticut, we are also celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. The speakers today will go into more detail on the Congressional Act, its past, present, and future, as well as the evolution of the Quilt Project and the Wild and Scenic section of the Farmington River. So if you can welcome Dave Sinish.
Well, thank you, Dan, and I appreciate you all coming on a Monday morning. This is a pretty amazing exhibition that we're opening here. Many people have asked me, well, what is this FRCC stuff? And what's FRWA, and how does that all relate? In 1981, when we started studying the Farmington River for inclusion into the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, we really didn't know what we were getting into, and we very soon found out that in order to get designated, you had to have a management plan. And so we worked on that and presented that to Congress, which they approved. And in 1994, we became a Wild and Scenic River segment, which is 14 miles from Canton upstream. Part of that designation was a designation as a recreational partnership river. So it's not a wild and scenic river like you might find out in Idaho or Colorado, but it's under the recreational category. And it's a partnership category because the federal government has a role to play, but the really strong role is that the local governments control their zoning and enforcement. So that's where the partnership comes in. And if you have a partnership, you have a lot of people who are partners, and they make up the membership of the Farmington River Coordinating Committee. So there are the 5 riverfronting towns of Canton, New Hartford, Barkhamsted, Colebrook, and Hartland. Thank you. As well as the Department of Environmental Protection, the Metropolitan District Commission, and the Farmington River Watershed Association. And we added on the Farmington River Anglers a few years into the operation. And obviously the National Park Service. So that's that coordinating committee. We do meet monthly, and there are subcommittees, and I happen to be the current chairman of the Education and Outreach Subcommittee. So that's why I have wound up being the chairman of a very pleased and grateful committee that has accepted this quilt project. So I hope that helps you out trying to figure out how this whole thing's structured.
Thank you, David.
All right.
Good morning. I think I'm going to be preaching to the choir here a little bit, but I just want to take a minute, literally a minute, to give you a brief history of how this quilt came to be. We do have I think just two quilt artists here. Gene Miller, who did one of the sections. Nice for you to be here. And I think it's pretty easy for you to pick out who the other quilt artist is here. And that's the one, obviously, I want to call the most attention to, and that's Mary Pat Leger. And it was Mary Pat's vision that created and made this quilt possible. Mary Pat is an amazing artist, and I have to say parenthetically that so is her husband Victor, who did the painting of the Farmington River. Notice it, please. That's on the poster introducing the quilts, explaining the quilts. That at the bottom, people think is a photograph, but it's actually an oil painting done by Victor, Mary Pat's husband. But the important thing about this is that Mary Pat, although she's an amazing artist, she's also a passionate defender of our natural resources and our environment. And her idea with this quilt was not just to create a beautiful work of art, but also to create a work of art that would have a lasting educational value to promote our outstanding river resources and to travel around to various venues and let people see and appreciate and recognize, what exactly we have here. And she didn't want this to just be about the Farmington River, although obviously that's what it depicts, but it really represents, more than that. It's our environment in literally any river. So I think you were very specific about that. She shared this vision with me, and we took the idea because I was on the Farmington River Coordinating Committee, we took the idea to the committee. It just seemed like a perfect thing for us to get involved with. And the Farmington River Coordinating Committee decided to sponsor the quilt. And by sponsoring the quilt, I mean help pay for all the materials. None of the quilt artists were paid. This was a labor of love for the quilt artists. So we paid for the materials, and we also provided information on site locations that the quilt artists might be interested in depicting, as well as descriptions about each of those. And of course you can read those. They're with each section of the quilt. So that is what the Farmington River Coordinating Committee did. And then after the quilt was completed, we took possession of the quilt, mostly because of Mary Pat's generosity, I think. I mean, it was just an agreement that she had, and I think she wanted to leave it in the hands of someone who could care for it and to make sure that it was continually shown and appreciated, not just, broken up into pieces and left somewhere. So that's basically the history of how this began and where it's at now. And I think that your vision and your goal is really being fulfilled. And I know one thing you said to me in the very beginning was someday you hope that this could be shown at the state capitol, and here we are. So I think that's amazing. And we have a lot of other places that we'd like to see it go, not just even it doesn't have to even remain in Connecticut. And the last thing I want to say about this is that I see this quilt, if cared for properly, and that's quite a job to care for it properly, when it's shown, to have it protected, to not have it handled, to have it handled properly, stored properly. But if it's handled properly, I see this becoming literally a historic document that'll outlive us, and I see it becoming more and more valuable as it becomes a historic document, because it's recorded a moment in time, and I think it will always be an amazing piece of art to see. And I kind of look at this as the Farmington River's Bayou tapestry, and I just think it's amazing. I'm glad you're here, and I hope a lot of people over the next month, you talk it up, and a lot of people get to see and appreciate this. So thank you, Mary Pat, and we love your outfit. So thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's an honor to represent the 5 communities that are part of the FRCC. You know, I like to say that I am an environmental legislator because these are our natural resources. I think once we lose them, we will never get them back. Put in a plug-in for the constitutional amendment. Please make sure you vote yes on that question this November. You know, to Mary and Roger and Dave, and I'm going to talk about Dan in just a minute. The work that you've done is just tremendous. Tim, my assistant, and I walked up just to take a look at the quilt before we convened this morning, and I didn't see it. I kind of looked from a distance because in my mind I was picturing a quilt, maybe something that you kind of used on the cover of your bed. And I came back and I said, when are you going to put the quilt up? And I was told, no, the quilt is up. I said, where is it up? I said, maybe I was looking in the wrong place. And Dan actually brought me up, and what a great curator you have here, because we went through every single individual quilt out of the 25 and explained the different parts of where they were located along the river. And then I thought we'd probably just walk casually back down to this meeting room, and Dan said, no. He goes, get on the walkathon, and he goes, and picture it just standing still as you move. And I'm so glad you did that, Dan, because the river came alive. It really did, just watching the different scenes unfold as you move through the scenes from up in Colebrook at the dam all the way down to the lower and down in the Canton section. It was just fascinating to see the different artists, their work, their visions for the Farmington Valley coming together. And everybody has a different vision. And I hope, and this building is one of the, I'm going to say one of your premier locations, Mary Pat, your dream to have it shown here in the state capitol allows people with different visions to come together and produce something that we can all benefit from. And I think anybody who has the opportunity to take a look at that quilt will realize not only the dedication and the volunteerism, that's what Connecticut's known for. We can't do anything really in Connecticut without the type and quality of volunteers that we have. But today it just seemed like the stars are all aligned. And I say that because it's the 50th anniversary of the Wild Scenic protection. All the groups are here today. And this morning on TIC radio, Don Stein, the first selectman of Barkhamsted, was there, and he spoke about the beauty of Barkhamsted. And he says, if you enjoy hiking, biking, camping, fishing in the river, he goes, you're going to love Barkhamsted, because we're known, and he mentioned the scenic wildlife designation. And I've had the opportunity, being up in that area, to meet folks from all over the world that come to Connecticut, specifically to the Farmington River. And I think the more people that have the opportunity to see your quilt and all the hard work that you've done, understand the story behind it, they're going to want to go and see the real thing. So that benefits the businesses in the area, any hotels in the area, the people, just to put Connecticut once again on the map. And I think you should all be so proud of the work that you've done. I'm certainly proud of it. My photographers here are taking a lot of pictures of that, so I want to showcase the work that you've done and spread the word so people can come out and appreciate the work that you did. I didn't wear my glasses this morning, so I was looking at really close, and I said, are those three-dimensional? I did a no-no. I kind of touched this little squirrel to see if it was bushy, and it was sticking out, and it was, and I'm like, holy cow, just the interpretation of all the different artists that took their vision and put it together seamlessly through the river flowing through it. So while they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, a stitch in time is 10,000 times that. So, but thank you for having me here this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for inviting me. I'm a freshman state representative representing West Hartford, Avon, and Farmington, so the lower Farmington River. And the Farmington River has a special place in my heart. I met the love of my life back in 1991, and the first day we went miniature golfing in Springfield, Mass. fast. The second date, we went to Fenway Park, Red Sox, Yankees, Roger Clemens against Pascual Perez. That was a good matchup. The third date was Satan's Kingdom. That's right, was to be on the Farmington River. And we've been essentially married ever since. And so I credit the Farmington River with, a very important place in my own life. And, we bring our kids there now. So it's such a treasure. And one of the things that I know, Republicans and Democrats, we all agree on, and it's great that this is kind of a real bipartisan effort, is that, there's nothing more important for the state of Connecticut than jobs, right? Than growing jobs and strengthening our economy. And environmental protection is not at odds with that. In fact, it's really has to be part of the strategy. And as a member of the Environment Committee, I'm committed to doing whatever I can to help protect the Farmington River and to strengthen it. And I know that there is real strong bipartisan support, as evidenced by Senator Witkos' commitment to it as well. So thanks for inviting me. Like I said, I'm a freshman, so I have a lot to learn still, and I'm eager to really, to learn a lot from all your wisdom and your experience. And thanks for all that you do. Thank you.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. So Connecticut has 6,000 miles of rivers and streams. And here at DEP, we are fortunate to be able to work across the state and to have watershed groups and activists who work to protect those rivers and streams. However, the Farmington River is unique in that it's blessed by having a hardy and stalwart group of citizens who work all the time to protect the river and the watershed, while encouraging citizens to connect with and enjoy the river, which is, I think, one of the things this gorgeous quilt does. And it's really a reflection of the respect and the importance of the Farmington River to the citizens of the watershed and also to the state of Connecticut. And those beautiful scenes, they reflect the splendor of the river through all the seasons and people connecting to the river. I'd heard about it for a long time. I was really fortunate to see it as we walked down here this morning. And in a state like Connecticut with such a long history of industrialization, we've used our rivers and we've used them for power. And with those powers come dams, and we're really fortunate that we still have some free-flowing segments, and hence the Wild and Scenic designation. And it's one of the many reasons that Connecticut and DEP supports the FRCC. Susan Peterson is our member who sits on it. She does all the hard work. I just get all the glory. But that we're one of the core members of that committee and have worked with everyone over the years to preserve and protect it. And it's our honor to be here today and to celebrate. I think it's a wonderful way to celebrate the river and celebrate our connection to the river. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here primarily on behalf of the National Park Service. My role is the director of the FRCC, so I have wonderful people, Roger, Susan, I'm not going to say everybody, David, Dan, all these people, Laura from the Watershed Association, Phelps over here. There's all these groups. We're a partnership, and that's the most important thing about this whole thing, is that there's no federal land. There's no federal power except for reviewing federally assisted and federally funded projects. There's really an emphasis on local values, the values for which, the river was designated, and that brings me to some of the qualities that lead to designation under the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. You have to have free-flowing river, which is what Betsey mentioned. You have to have outstandingly remarkable values, which we have history, fisheries and wildlife, clean water, scenery, and I'd like to add that now we have an additional outstandingly remarkable value, and that's actually words right from the Act that we have to live with, and we kind of morph it into outstanding resources, but I think that the quilt project really needs to be added to the list of outstandingly remarkable values for this river because it is truly a treasure. And I think the National Park Service really appreciates the unbelievable talent and cooperation that went into that project. So thank you. Thank you all for being here.
What I would like is if everybody could go out after a couple of remarks here to go up, walk up and take a look at the quilts would be great. And any questions? Ideas, you ride up and down. Yep, we'll get Kevin. He's going to be our guy. So, just as a curator, we had when we set this up yesterday, a couple options that we had. We really would like to have it continuous 50 feet piece quilt to quilt, but with the constraints of the wall and the building, we had to break it into 7 sections. But I still think that you can see the flow of the river when you walk by, but particularly when you do the, I don't even know what you call that, Kevin. What you call it something? It's a walk or the yeah, whatever. So you will notice that the
canoe.
a canoe? That's what I'm going to do later today. So, if you notice that the quilts, they are not evenly hung, they're up and down, so that you can get that feel from the quilt, from the river to river. So river to river sections, the quilts are kind of going up and down. So the viewer still can feel this flow. So then, the narratives below each piece reflects why the artist chose that particular section of river. Underneath you'll see writing, and then what the artist kind of felt was their inspiration for each piece. And then a member of the FRCC and a few others had some narrative on their feelings and thoughts on that particular, what we call pool or section of the river. So please take a look at those also. Enjoy the quilts for the month of October. There's some postcards here that are informational to take. It has a website, which is farmingtonriverquilt.org. So please enjoy the beautiful collection of this expressive work on display today. Thank you for coming out.
This project took about 3 years to be in the works. A couple of years of planning. The artists had between a year and less than a year, because 6 months and a year to finish their piece. And each artist worked probably, I would say, 20 to 40 hours, maybe more, on each section. Between going out and taking pictures, they took numerous pictures. Some people went back 3 or 4 times to try to get a different season, or the water wasn't as high as they wanted, or it was too high, and so they went back repeatedly to their spot to take pictures. And then just the creating the fabrics. Each artist was given 3 fabrics to make up the water, though they could add more fabrics, or they could use just 1 or 2 of the 3 that they were given. They supplied the rest of the materials for each of their quilts. And they also were given their location, and the size of the river entering the quilt and exiting the quilt. And then that had to enter and exit in the middle 7 inches of each panel so that we would get this undulating effect as the panels were connected river to river. There's quilters here that are, big name nationally known quilters, and there's quilters here that this was their first attempt at a landscape quilt. And there's actually one who isn't really a fabric artist at all, but a painter, but was approached to do it and loves the river, and so she borrowed a sewing machine so that she could be part of this this project. My vision was for it to be out and not to just make it and show it once and then have it go in a box, or to be split up to hang in 25 different people's offices. My vision was that it would continually be out in the public for people to see, just so that they could learn more about the river and appreciate it, even if it's not part of your daily life driving by it or living near it, but just so that they could appreciate our natural resources and that we need to take care of them.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.